Hey guys, with residency coming to a close, I was recently reflecting on the beginnings of medical school. Some friends and I were recently discussing the idea of enchantment, which is a concept that has garnered renewed interest in recent years as humanity sorts out its complicated relationship with technology and with modernism. And my friends and I were recalling those moments in our lives in which we experienced real wonder. And I relayed the story of the first time I stepped into the operating room in my first month of medical school. The pediatric surgeons were performing a NUS procedure for what we call pectus excavatum in a 16-year-old boy, and I was struck with awe as I saw his heartbeat within his chest. I remember this moment so clearly, even though it was nearly 11 years ago at this point. I remember feeling sincere love for this kid, whom I had never met except under general anesthesia. And I realize now that love and wonder are deeply intertwined, and the things that inspire wonder within us also awaken something pure and transcendent, something that we call love. I also think that wonder reminds us of something we have in some way experienced before, perhaps subconsciously. Wonder is strangely familiar. It seems like a blip in our space-time continuum, where we are perhaps reunited with a former or future version of ourselves. Life resembles a mosaic that scatters into pieces, writes Eugene Vodolazkin in his epic book, Loris. But in the mosaic of your life, he writes, there is also something that joins all of those separate parts. It is an aspiration for him, and they will gather together again in him. I remembered another encounter from my time in New Hampshire, this time while out on a run. Medical school had introduced me to all sorts of granola-type people who brewed their own kombucha and made their own furniture. One of the many salutary effects of being granola adjacent was learning how to run. I had never run in my life, but my classmates inspired me with their feats of cardiovascular fitness, and I strove to be just like them. And I'm so thankful that I did. It gave me the opportunity to spend evenings totally immersed in the beauty of nature. And had I not been heartily inspired by the granola types, I may never have encountered the bear. That too was 11 years ago. It was early evening, and I was out for a run along Timberwood Drive. Dusk was approaching, and the golden hour glowed. I was only 5 minutes away from my apartment when I ran into a bear. Out of the blue, in a clearing maybe 20 feet from a major highway, it just looked up at me. And it wasn't a baby bear, but it didn't seem fully grown either, and I had thoughtlessly almost just run headlong into it. What followed next was just one of the strangest experiences of my life. I froze immediately when I saw the bear standing in front of me, but I was amazed that I was not afraid. The bear just considered me very, very calmly, and I was seized with awe. I felt time stop in that moment, because we, the bear and I, were somehow larger than life, meeting just outside the bounds of time. The bear was full of spirit, and there was something in its jet black eyes that told me that it had been waiting for me. The bear seemed like it was from another world, and it had come to tell me something. A loud truck grumbled by, and the bear slipped away immediately. I stood there for a few moments, just totally dazed by the surrealism of this encounter. I was sad that my bear had left me. I returned home totally lost in thought, and my roommate thought I was crazy when I tried to explain what had happened, and I convinced myself that maybe she was in fact right. Life moved on though, and I nearly forgot everything that happened that summer evening on Timberwood Drive. 10 years later though, I found myself in Moscow, staring at Morning in a Pine Forest by Ivan Shishkin. If you are unfamiliar with this painting, it features beautiful bear cubs playing in an enchanted, still forest. My heart stopped when I saw this painting. I was immediately transported to that summer in New Hampshire when I met the bear, a memory that I had long since forgotten. I had the uncanny sense that my bear was somewhere in Shishkin's forest, and that it was looking for me. I was overtaken by a profound sense of calm, the same calm that had come over me when I had looked my bear in the eyes in New Hampshire all those years ago. I felt a kinship that was ancient and mysterious, one that was instantly recognizable to a former version of myself that I thought I had long outgrown. My bear had been guiding me, the mosaic was coming together, and peace settled around my shoulders. I have a picture of myself actually standing in front of Shishkin's painting, grinning from ear to ear. I can see the lightness in my face. It's the lightness of realizing that you are deeply loved and protected. I have missed my bear dearly over the years, and I wondered when and how I might see him in Philadelphia. I've taken some comfort in knowing that the Orion constellation is visible from Philly during some months of the year, even if I can never find it or see it. A few months ago, to my total astonishment, I encountered the bear once again. He surfaced after a long hibernation, this time in the form of the written word. I had been out running through a farmer's market on a Saturday when an old man sold me the collected works of Steinbeck and Faulkner. I have talked about this old man before. He was also cloaked in some mystery. He was eccentric and unusually persistent in his salesmanship. I bought the book because I loved John Steinbeck. Faulkner had always been a bit outside my comprehension, and I thought I wasn't smart enough to understand the important things he was trying to say. So that is how I came to learn about The Bear, a story that Faulkner published in 1942. Of all the books a person could have sold me, I laughed in amazement to think that this one wound its way into my hands. Here he was again, my dear bear, who had kept such a low profile in Philadelphia these last 7 years. The Bear is a coming-of-age story about young Ike, who matures as he hunts a mythic bear called Old Ben in the Mississippi wilderness. I thought of Shishkin's beautiful bear cubs, and I imagined that one of them grows into Faulkner's bear with the passage of time. The space-time continuum is again disrupted. The wormhole unravels, and Shishkin's cub has grown into Old Ben. There are more gray hairs within his lustrous coat, and his eyesight has been blunted over time. Old Ben remains respected and powerful, and he is untamed and wise. The cub has no premonition that one day he will be hunted for sport among the same forest in which he delights, or that men will hunt him to assert their own manhood. So what did Faulkner's bear come to teach me this time? I quote from his story. There was an old bear, fierce and ruthless, not merely just to stay alive, but with the fierce pride of liberty and freedom, proud enough of the liberty and freedom to see it threatened without fear or even alarm. Nay, who at times even seemed deliberately to put that freedom and liberty in jeopardy in order to savor them, to remind his old, strong bones and flesh to keep supple and quick to defend and preserve them. I think Faulkner came to remind me that I had maybe grown complacent with my own liberty and freedom, that I had lost a sense of freedom in my bones, that the tedium and distractions of daily living had chipped away at my courage and curiosity. I think he came to jolt me out of my own self-doubt, my oldest and dearest mortal enemy. I had forgotten that I had been gifted free will, that I had everything within me to build a life that would be stimulating and worthwhile. He came to remind me that I had been protected over the years, without my ever knowing, and that now it was time to protect others. I walked past a patient in our hospital before I left who was missing both of his legs. He was parked at the edge of a busy hallway and was reading a heavily annotated Bible in his wheelchair. I imagined his sincere cry for protection. Old Ben would nod knowingly. I think that to live in wonder is to live knowing that your earthly life ends one day, and to savor every last drop that has been poured from the cup. It's to listen to what the bears are trying to tell us, especially when we are most afraid. It is to watch the mosaic fall into place, to understand that every part of yourself that you have scattered out into the world coheres magnificently in the end. Old Ben is accompanied by a mongrel dog that has some parting words for all of us. I can't be dangerous, the mongrel says, because there's nothing much smaller than I. I can't be fierce, because they would just call it noise. I can't be humble, because I'm already too close to the ground to genuflect. I can't be proud, because I wouldn't be near enough to it for anyone to know who was casting the shadow. And I don't even know that I'm not going to heaven, because they have already decided that I don't possess an immortal soul. So all I can be is brave. But it's all right. I can be that, even if they still call it just noise. I hope you'd enjoyed these excerpts.